Welcome back to High Stakes. Today, we will be discussing the following NCAAF matches that is happening on Saturday, September 30th, 2023. We will be providing our team, total, and prop picks for the day. Before we get started, please remember to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our videos. If you want access to our premium picks, you can check out our Patreon page. You can find the link to our Patreon page in the description and comment section below. Clemson versus Syracuse. Take Syracuse plus 6.5 points. Syracuse picked up another win, this time coming from behind to defeat Army by a score of 29-16. Garrett Schrader completed 21/26 passes for 245 yards, throwing one pick and one touchdown. Schrader also rushed for 50 yards and a touchdown as well. LaQuint Allen hit triple digits on the day with 104 yards and a touchdown, while Damian Alford led the receiving corps with 135 yards on only 9 catches. Syracuse is also solid at running the ball, ranking inside the top 20 with an average of 213.3 yards per game. Their 44.3 points per game ranks 6th in the nation, and their total yards per game on average is top 10 in the country. Syracuse has thrown for an average of 294.5 yards per game as well. Schrader has similar stats to Klubnik, completing 66.7% of his passes for 972 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. He has 8 sacks to his name, along with being the leading rusher for the Orange. And 15 less carries than the leading back Allen, Schrader has 5 more yards rushing, 316 to 311, and the same number of rushing touchdowns on the year. Ike Daniels and Juwan Pierce provide depth to the position, as both are close to reaching 100-plus yards this year. Alford, Donovan Brown, and Umari Hatcher are all within 4 catches and 22 yards of each other on the receiving corps. Alford barely edges the other two with 17 receptions and 247 yards on the year. On defense, Marlowe Wax has the most tackles on the year with 31, while also leading the squad with 19 solo tackles. He is tied with Anwar Sparrow in sacks with 2, and he has the most sack yards with 17. Wilson has been the primary pass defender with 5 on the year, while the person closest to him only has 2. Justin Barron has 2 of the team's 6 interceptions so far. As a unit, the Orange have given up an average of 274.3 yards per game, 185.3 through the air and 89 even on the ground. Their 10.8 points surrendered per game ranks 7th in the nation. Syracuse has 6 players on the injury report, with only 2, Trevor Payna and Kalen Ellis, listed as questionable for Saturday. The rest are out for the season or out indefinitely. Syracuse is determined to maintain their flawless record at home when they face off against the former powerhouse team, Clemson. On the other hand, Clemson is seeking to rebound from a challenging loss to the number 5 ranked FSU. While Clemson has faced significantly tougher competition compared to Syracuse, I anticipate that Syracuse will put up a strong enough fight to cover the spread. Both teams are expected to heavily rely on their running game and solid defensive efforts in this matchup. Consequently, I don't foresee either team establishing a substantial double-digit lead for an extended period. Clemson's loss to FSU might have had a demoralizing effect, even though the expectation was not necessarily to compete at the same level as the Seminoles. Regardless, a loss is a loss, and it remains to be seen how the team rebounds. While I still believe Clemson will emerge victorious, it's unlikely to be by a margin as wide as the spread suggests. Syracuse is poised to put up a strong performance and keep the game competitive. Also take the under. Clemson lost a close matchup against Florida State, losing by a score of 31-24 in overtime. Cade Klubnik completed 25 of 38 passes and threw for 283 yards, with 1 touchdown. Phil Maffa and Will Shipley were nearly identical in the ground game in terms of yards earned, and Tyler Brown led the receiving corps with 5 receptions and 84 yards. On defense, R.J. Mickens had 3 tackles and 4 tackle assists, while Xavier Thomas and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. provided the sacks for the Tigers. Although they aren't as lethal as in years past, Clemson's offense currently ranks just outside the top 20 in yards per game with 474.3 and just inside the top 30 teams with an average of 199 yards rushing per contest. They are averaging 275.3 yards through the air per game and a solid 36.3 points per game as well. Klubnik is the primary quarterback for Clemson, completing 66.2% of his passes for 976 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. He has also rushed for 2 touchdowns on the year. Phil Mafah has the most TD runs with 3, while Will Shipley is leading the squad in carries, 54, and yards, 292. Bose Collins is the leading receiver for the Tigers with 226 yards on 17 catches. 3 different players are tied for the highest number of touchdown receptions, with 2 including Brown and Antonio Williams. Defensively, Clemson has surrendered an average of 22.5 points per game, which is solid considering they held FSU, a top 5 ranked team, to 24 points in 4 quarters. The Tigers have also given up an average of 262.8 yards per game, ranking 7th in the nation. They have given up 183.8 yards through the air and only 79 yards per game on the ground for opposing offenses, 11th in the country. Trotter Jr. has the most tackles with 23, while Barrett Carter has the highest number of solo tackles with 12. Xavier Thomas is the sack leader with 2, while Jalen Phillips leads the Tiger with 3 passes defended. Wade Woodez has a team-high 2 interceptions on the year. Clemson has 5 players on the injured list, including Nate Wiggins and Antonio Williams, who are questionable on Saturday. The rest are out for the year or indefinitely. Both these teams have identical styles of the way they play, with effective running and solid defense while also being able to produce through the air. Considering both teams have shown their dominance on the defensive side of the ball, I expect these squads to combine for no more than 53 points. Syracuse has given up an average of just over 10 points per game, and I expect each team to do their best to run the ball and tire out each defense. This will lead to the clock dwindling down quickly, and while the defenses will tire, it will be too late to hit the over. I don't expect either defense to give up, and as the game goes on, the intensity will increase, and every point will matter. I believe more field goals will result and they won't hit the over. Florida versus Kentucky. Take Kentucky minus 2.5 points. The Kentucky Wildcats enter this game with a perfect 4-0 record. They have done what they were supposed to do, not only beating teams they were supposed to beat, but also covering the spread 3 of 4 times. However, they now enter the meat of their schedule. Life in the SEC is about tough games, and the Wildcats have 8 tough matchups in a row, including a trip to Georgia next week and Alabama down the road. The Wildcats are piloted by senior quarterback Devin Leary. Leary transferred in from NC State, having 6,807 yards passing in 30 career games for an average of 227 YPG under his belt. In the first 4 games this season, Leary is averaging 265 YPG, which is 6th in the SEC. His 9 passing TDs are 3rd in the league, and his 5 interceptions are the 2nd most. His completion percentage is on the lower end, coming in at 59.3%. One reason for his lower completion percentage rate is the Wildcats' propensity for big plays. Leary ranks 2C&D in the nation with 4 pass plays of 50-plus yards. Leary has a deep pool of talented receivers to work with. Leading the core of receivers is the senior Tavion Robinson. Robinson has 16 receptions for 283 yards, averaging an eye-opening 17.7 yards per reception. He also leads all team receivers with 3 touchdowns. Barion Brown and the 6'3" Dane Key were both All-American freshmen last year and are 2nd and 3rd on the team in reception yards, respectively. The playmaker in the backfield is senior running back Ray Davis. He is averaging 78.5 yards per game this season and has the bulk of the touchdowns. He has scored 5 times rushing the ball and twice receiving. Additionally, Davis has also been targeted 10 times with passes for 137 yards. It is noteworthy to mention that the offense has benefited from the return of offensive coordinator Liam Cohn. Cohn was the coordinator in 2021 but left for a season in the NFL with the LA Rams. Cohn has returned to join Mark Stoops. One problem that has stuck out on the offensive side of the ball are the failures on first down plays. According to the Lexington Herald-Leader, Cohn recently addressed these first down issues facing the Wildcats. Defensively, the Kentucky Wildcats are ranked 12th in the nation, only allowing 287 yards per game. This contrasts with its 321 yards per game in 2022. Of course, Kentucky is just now entering the tough SEC schedule, which will most likely see yards allowed per game average rise. Defensively, both sophomore cornerback Maxwell Hairston and junior linebacker Trevin Wallace stand out. Hairston had an opportunistic game last week with 2 pick sixes on 3 interceptions against Vanderbilt. Linebacker Trevin Wallace has 3.5 sacks on the season with 1 forced fumble. The defensive line is shored up by sophomore DT Deone Walker, who was a freshman All-American last season and is probably the best prospect on the roster to get drafted into the NFL. Also take the under 44.5 as the play here. The Gators are off to a reasonably strong start to the 2023 season. After traveling to Utah and losing to a very good Utes team by a score of 11-24 plus 5.5 line, they have won 3 straight, including a key win against then 11th ranked team Tennessee 29-16 plus 4.5 line. In that game against the Vols, the Gators dominated on the ground with sophomore running back Trevor Etienne rushing for 172 yards and 1 touchdown. Junior running back Montrell Johnson Jr. also chipped in with 23 yards and a touchdown. The Florida Gators are captained by junior quarterback Graham Mertz. This will be an important game for Mertz, as the Wisconsin transfer heavily considered Kentucky a possible landing spot to finish his collegiate career. Kentucky opted for their current QB, Devin Leary, and Mertz headed to Gainesville. Mertz has been an efficient game manager so far this season. He leads the SEC in passing percentage, throwing at a 77.8% clip, 4th nationally, while only throwing 1 interception. Additionally, he is averaging 248 yards in the air per game. Mertz directs a deliberate offense that only runs 66.7 plays a game for an average of 5.5 yards per play. In Florida's key game against Tennessee this year, Mertz only attempted 24 passes. He completed 19 of them for a 79% completion rate. Overall, the offense of the Gators looks to control the ball, run the clock, and limit mistakes. They average 165 yards per game on the ground. The backfield consists of junior Montrell Johnson and the brother of the NFL's Travis Etienne, Trevor Etienne, sophomore. Etienne leads the team with 329 yards, averaging 6.7 per play and 2 touchdowns. Johnson has 211 yards, averaging 4.6 per play and 3 touchdowns. The deliberate pace of the offense has allowed the Gators to shore up the defensive side of the ball. So far this season, the defense is allowing 289 yards per game, which is good for 13th in the nation. Contrastingly, the Florida Gators defense allowed 412 yards per game in 2022. Both offenses of the Kentucky Wildcats and the Florida Gators run the clock. Kentucky runs a pro-style offense which includes a huddle before every snap and frequently includes pre-snap motions. This slows the tempo down. Florida's offense also runs the clock due to the high accuracy of the quarterback mixed in with a rush-happy offense. This combination will result in fewer plays on offense from both sides. Additionally, Florida has struggled mightily of late converting red zones into touchdowns. In the last game against Charlotte, Florida had 1 touchdown and 5 field goals. The last 2 matchups between these two teams totaled 33 and 42. There is no reason to see this pattern changing.